am an energy worker. And in any kind of energy work, you are always working with yourself first. So when we speak to an audience, we are expressing our spirit, our aliveness, our energy, and the people we are drawn to as speakers are just doing it in a really truthful way. And because they're present to themselves and they're present to the audience, and it's magic and we can all do it. That's my deep belief. But when I got to drama school, they said you're in your head. It was so normal to me that I couldn't really unpack that at all, but it meant I wasn't really present. And what you can say is that over the last decades, I've been unpacking what they meant when they said you're in your head. The thing about voice teaching is that it's about performance. So you're learning to power out your breath and to manage your body so you can be present to your actors and an audience. Even if you're in front of 8,000 people, you can walk out on that stage and you can relax your feet and you can smile at the audience and you can have a great chat with them. I had to learn to quieten my mind, which was partly about learning how to relax my feet. It was partly about knowing how to breathe diaphragmatically. It was partly about feeling the resonance of my voice as a speaker. It was about being able to self-regulate, so manage emotion, use it, harness it. And all of those tools are tools that I teach people I'm working with. And when you get them, they're really simple.
Ambition is not a dirty word. Impact is not synonymous with struggle. In fact, massive impact is absolutely possible with joy, fun, and sublime integrity. I'm Bianca Best, author and founder of The Burnout Business, and this is the Big Impact Show, where success meets grace. I'm absolutely delighted today to have with me on the Big Impact Show a woman who has inspired me personally over the past decade since I first discovered her book in W.H. Smith's at an airport, I believe, many years ago. I am joined today by Caroline Goyder. Caroline is an inspiration to every one of us learning to understand how we can communicate most effectively. She is the author of several incredible books. She really is a guru and goddess of all things communication, and I'm so excited about what we're going to learn today. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today, Caroline.
It is lovely to be here, and what an introduction.
Well, I'm not kidding. I was at a point in my career where I felt, okay, if I want to up level, I've really got to hone how I communicate. And your book spoke to me, and it's been a Bible. I mean, it's.
I love it. I love it. I love that it was in the airport as well. Your music to an author's ears.
It was. So, please, can you tell our listeners and viewers your story? How come you're here with me as this communication expert? What's your story?
Do you remember the maths teacher at school who was not someone who'd been naturally good at maths, and so was the teacher who could really explain it to the kids who didn't get it? That's basically, I am that person, because all of the stuff around, being this guru of communication and teaching others how to do it, everything I teach is stuff that has been quite hard won for me, in that I am not, in inverted commas, a particularly confident person. I'm an introvert, and in order to speak in public, I kind of have to build myself up to it still. But what I've got because of that, like that maths teacher at school, is a set of tools that you can really deploy to make you step out on stage feeling confident in that moment, and then you can get off stage and turn the lights off again. And I think a lot of people who teach what I teach are just the confident ones. They learnt it young. They don't remember how they learnt it. It's just innate. That's not me. I'm constantly practicing everything that I teach to others. And I think that it keeps it alive in a way.
Wow, that's so interesting. That actually lends itself to the whole, the realm that I'm in, the healing realm, the wounded healer. When you've gone through your own trauma, your own pain and suffering, and you've built the resilience to know how to adapt and survive, you've lived it, and so therefore you teach it. So I love that example, and then presumably that means that you've got more granularity around the techniques that you're teaching, because you're still having to apply them regularly.
It's a path, isn't it? When any kind of, I think I am an energy worker. And in any kind of energy work, you are always working with yourself first because it's embodied, isn't it? All of this.
I love that. Hello, welcome, energy worker. Because there is a spiritual dimension to all of this as well, isn't there?
In all sorts of cultures like Tibet, they don't talk about mind, body, spirit. They talk about voice, breath, body. And the voice is the spirit part of it. The voice is part of it's just because voice, I mean, if we let's go deep right now, voice is exhaled air. And in Latin, inspiration, bringing the spirit in, is about breath. So when we speak to an audience, we are expressing our spirit, our aliveness, our energy, and the people we are drawn to as speakers are just doing it in a really truthful way. And they're because they're present to themselves and they're present to the audience. And it's magic and we can all do it. That's my deep belief. So we've gone there early.
That's so inspiring. We've gone to the heart of what matters. And I didn't know that. I love that wisdom. Thank you. So, how did you get to this place of not feeling confident speaking to it becoming your life's work?
I had studied English and I knew that I liked words and I thought I wanted to be an actor. And I got to drama school and I realized really quickly that I wasn't an actor. And the reason I wasn't an actor is because my body and my head were really disjointed, which sounds absolutely crazy. But what I know now is that there are some people who, because of the way we're educated, and I'd been educated that way, we get very in cognition. And it was like my head was leading me around the world. And my body, there were, for all sorts of reasons that you will know, I had locked out lots of feeling, which reasons we don't need to go into. But when I got to drama school, they said, you're in your head.
Hmm.
It was so normal to me that I couldn't really unpack that at all. But it meant I wasn't really present. I wasn't present to my body. I wasn't present to other actors. I wasn't present to the words I was speaking. I wasn't really present to my feelings. And what you can say is that over the last decades, many decades, I've been unpacking what they meant when they said you're in your head. And I'm about to go deeper into that question actually, because I'm doing a breathwork training, but it's been a kind of layers and layers and layers of an onion of finding out what it means to get more into my body and to get out of my head in the nicest possible way.
Yeah, I can totally relate, and that's a lot of what I teach actually. And at the moment, I'm doing a lot of exam preparation management with children. And it's about getting them out of their heads into their bodies, because when we're in that calm, grounded, physical sense of self, we're safe. And in that place of safety, from there we can go out and do our thinking and do our, but being up there for too long, it's exhausting and it's not healthy for us. So that's fabulous that you're going into that work now. But I'm fascinated that you've had this huge career. In the meantime, if somebody said at drama school, hang on a minute, you're not in your body, well, how did you thrive?
How did I get into my body? I mean, I think it's the journey that I take all the speakers I work on into. First of all, it's understanding that when we speak, voice is breath, breath is really embodied. And I think the difference is that after drama school, I trained as a voice teacher. And the thing about voice teaching is that it's about performance. So you're learning to power out your breath on stage and to manage your body so you can be present to your actors and an audience. The piece I'm going to next is a deeper trauma related piece, which you will know. But the last few decades have been about really understanding how you center yourself as a speaker on a stage and how everybody can be conversational. Even if you're in front of 8,000 people, you can walk out on that stage and you can relax your feet and you can smile at the audience and you can have a great chat with them. And my life's work really is taking the revelation that it can feel easy in front of an audience that big, or an audience that are really daunting if there's only two of them. It can feel as conversational as chatting to your friends. And that was so exciting to me when I discovered it, that I just think everybody should know that. Because most people don't think that, do they?
No. And is that because it happened to you? Because you started to notice, when I get myself in this zone, it doesn't matter how intimidating the audience or the environment is, I'm okay.
Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't need to take a long time for everybody else, but like Alexander technique, like all sorts of different therapies. For me, it took a while to work it out. And I had to do lots of things that you will know from your work. I had to learn to quieten my mind. I had to learn to be more physically grounded, which was partly about learning how to relax my feet. It was partly about knowing how to breathe diaphragmatically. It was partly about feeling the resonance of my voice as a speaker. It was about being able to self-regulate, so manage emotion, use it, harness it. And all of those tools are tools that I teach people I'm working with. And when you get them, they're really simple.
That's very interesting, because that's so based and focused on the very technical aspects of self management. From my own experience of knowing that I needed to be a more confident public speaker, I used the route of exposure therapy.
Yeah, that's a good way in too.
Yeah. Okay. Um, okay. So what would you recommend to somebody? So go back 10 years ago, me. So I'm just someone who's run my own business, raised children, and sold that business, end up in the corporate environment where suddenly I've got to be on stage, I've got to be presenting. I've got no experience other than the odd reading at a christening or a wedding, but I know now it's really important. And I wasn't of the generation that today through university where you're presenting all the time. It was really alien. So I really recognized I didn't want to be a shaking, quaking wreck on stage.
Not fun, is it? Yeah.
No, and my nervous system would be very visibly. I never get blotches or skin flares, but I shake my legs, and I'm always in heels because I feel confident and lovely in heels. And then my legs would shake and my arms would shake, and people would ask me if I was ill or if I'd had too much coffee. And literally, I'd get like, "Oh, are you okay?" I'd be like, "Well, just nervous." So I try to thrust myself into the spotlight by hosting a public speaking group in the business that I worked in, a lunchtime public speaking group, so that every once a week I was like having to talk to a room, and gradually just really scared myself going out of my comfort zone until the point that it became fun. But that took years, a decade probably. It's only really just become fun recently. But what would you recommend to someone who's just beginning their journey of wanting to public speak, perhaps has limited resources and can't necessarily book time with you or go to a Toastmasters, but is even that useful? Where would you recommend someone start?
Ooh, a great question. I mean, the first thing I would say is that if you go to my website, which is carolinegoyder.com, and download the two free courses. The first one is a confidence booster course. It's just audio, and it gives you little 5-minute sections. It gives you a little bit on breathing, a little bit on grounding, a little bit on understanding the difference between strength and warmth with an audience, and a little bit on using your pauses. And if you just practice those things, and I love the aversion therapy piece, and put yourself in front of audiences who make you feel a bit nervous. Now, my recommendation to a youngster who can't set up that corporate group would be a local drama school. Not going to charge you much money. They might have an evening acting course. They might have a summer school where you can go for a week. I did that at Central School of Speech and Drama, where I later I taught for nearly 10 years there, but I started out going to evening courses. Because then you can take what's in my little audio course and you can start to practice it with a group who will support you. The other thing you can do, if it feels fun, if it draws you in, is there's lots of improvisation classes going on. It's a thing at the moment, improvisation. And that requires playfulness. It's like it's being childlike in the best sense. So I think taking those principles and then testing them in improvisation is also a really good way to go, either acting or impro, or like you say, the Toastmasters piece. But I hear you. That's a big input of time, Toastmasters, isn't it?
Mm. Well, as is the improv route. I've got a few friends who are actually going into the comedy clubs and sort of booking themselves gigs up in Edinburgh Festival this summer.
Yeah, that's I mean that's the big league. I think just find your local, once a week improv lessons and go there first. But I mean, an Edinburgh show is so hats off to them. That takes courage.
And is with your client base, does it tend to be that the goal is make me perform brilliantly on stage, or is it sometimes just help me with my interactions one to one? What's the scope of who you work with?
It's interesting. I think because of Gravitas, because of that book, and because it really interests me, I spend a lot of my time coaching clients for board meetings or for, executive committee, as well as the piece of I want to do a TED talk. And actually, I think there's a really interesting piece around, because I know that stillness is power, that the people with a real sense of authority are deeply grounded in who they are. And that, interestingly, also makes you a great speaker on stage. We're animal. We are always looking for cues of, does this person trust themselves? Do they trust their message? Can I trust them? As well as, will they be my friend? Are they warm? Are they friendly? We're looking at, do I trust this person? And so how we handle ourselves under pressure, whether it's in a boardroom or on a stage, is actually very similar. It's how do you find ease? The ease that you have when you're with the people who make you safe. And how can you make yourself safe in that moment? That's the secret source of all of this, is safety. Deep self-regulation under pressure.
So you must be able to watch people performing or in the media or even interacting with you like me and be able to get a sense immediately of how safe do they feel in themselves, and you can read that.
Yeah, I mean, I read in you that you're really grounded, your breath is relaxed, your eyes have that lovely, relaxed, regulated gaze. There's a sense of easy connection, and your voice is fluid, musical. So and we're all masters at reading that. We know instantly at an unconscious level whether that ease is there or if it's not.
So interesting, isn't it? Thank you for that dissection. So does that mean then that can you take somebody who isn't endemically within, if they're out of their own integrity, can you read that immediately and see that somebody isn't necessarily being honest, isn't living their lives in integrity, and therefore they are much more of a challenge for you to get them to the place of being grounded and
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think of a client I was working with recently, and we'd done some work. She wants to be a speaker in front of big audiences, and so I'd worked with her for 3 or 4 sessions, and we'd done some work on preparing for meetings, and we thought about speaking in meetings, and it wasn't quite hitting the mark. There was something blocking it. There was something else going on. And at that point, I said, I think we really need to do some breath work. And I lay her down on the floor and we really dug into diaphragmatic breathing, quietening her mind, because when we breathe diaphragmatically, the mind goes quiet. Really finding that deep, relaxed inner center, and then thinking about how you speak from that. And I got an email from her a few days ago that said, I've just been doing it every day and it's changing. So it's as if there are layers on layers and layers. There's a layer of how you prepare, which can help some people. There's a layer of how you speak in the room. Take a pause, breathe deeply, stay centered. There's another layer, which is, can you find really deep ease in your breath? Now, there is a layer beneath that, which I'm not trained to handle. And that's where I say, okay, it sounds like there's something else going on here. and then I refer because deep trauma I'm not trained to handle, and I can think of a handful of clients over a few decades where I've said to them, yeah, this feels like there's something else underneath this that I want you to explore with someone trained to pick up the pieces, to hold you in the exploration.
Well, Caroline, it so much goes back to what you said at the beginning around this being energy work. That what you've just described there resonates so tunefully with where my work is going similarly. I've just certified in something called energy codes coaching. So I'm taking my coaching down a level. So beyond the life coaching, executive coaching, success strategizing, going down into energetic vibes and really starting to sense the resonance within to understand if there are broken circuits or blockages that tend to come from what has happened in our lives, but we'll be creating this stuttered almost manifestation of life and perhaps self. So the work that I'm doing now is to take clients back into what I describe as the soulful self,
Oh, I love that.
peel away the performative, protective personality, which is the ego. We love the ego, we need the ego because it's motivating, but sometimes it can be quite blocky because we've put up protective walls because we're a bit afraid. But as we start to dispel that and sort of soften down through breath work, like you're describing, down into more of our intuitive, soulful, innate self, then we start to naturally flow a bit more and life becomes full of ease and everything starts to feel easier in terms of relationship harmony and communication and even wealth, whatever it is that we desire, because we become, yeah, because we become more of who we are.
Oh, I mean, this, and it's all a path, isn't it? Because in my own speaking, there's a layer of an onion which I'm coming to now, which is about tensions that I've held for decades, right? And so I think there's no sense in any of this work that any of us are ever like done, fixed.
I agree.
You're just always just going, okay, there's this set of habits has got me here. Oh, that's interesting. I'm noticing, like in me, I'm noticing tension in the back of my neck and my jaw, which I've had since I was a kid. And it's starting to kind of, I'm just noticing in it. That means it's in a place where it's saying to me, you can release. And all of us hold stuff. We all hold stuff, and it shows up in us as speakers. It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay. And it's interesting that that's around the throat chakra area. So
It
that
is what we need. It's hilarious.
exactly. Release, release. Well, some of the breath work that I've been learning is to just really, where you notice it physically, where you notice that tension, it's trying to release the blockage or perhaps a broken circuit through breath work. So we have to imagine that there's this sort of pole coming from the heavens down into the center of the core of the earth. Because that is where energy and divine energy and earthly energy, yeah, it connects. So if you breathe up and down that channel and enjoy sensing where there might be different physical manifestations of tension and breathe in and out in those particular areas, you start to get it flowing again.
It's magic, isn't it? It is, and the thing about speaking is that what I love about our culture is that no one talks about the fact that speech is out breath.
You're the first person who's ever said that to me, and I've done Toastmasters training. I've watched 1,000,001 blogs. Yeah,
And it's just so important to understand that, isn't it? Because then speech connects to everything you've just said. It's part of the same free flow of energy. It's part of connecting to the center of you. And when we get into it, I mean, it's prana and yoga, it's spiritus in Latin, it's all of that. Speech is that. It's out breath.
it really is out breath. I actually, one of the last strategies in my recent book, I talk about fulfillment and truth and coming into truth and speaking your truth. And I also did a little bit of research around silence and those who don't speak, because actually holding something within and staying silent can also be dishonest. And that was something that really threw me. But actually, yes, people use silence tactically. And I found that quite revelatory to think that, oh, even silence needs examination.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's well, so my granny and all of her family were Quakers. And you know the Quaker only speak if you improve the silence. But that's got a double edge to it, hasn't it? If you don't speak and you could have improved the silence, then what won't, what are you seeing that you're not naming that won't, might not happen now because you haven't named it. And I spend a lot of time with people thinking about when they prep for meetings, what's my intention? What's my perspective? And what's my audience perspective here? What are they not seeing that I'm seeing? What do I speak to that won't be seen unless I name it? And I think women often, we can go to the cultural stuff. There are often, we've learned over a lifetime that sometimes it's better just to not speak. Not just women either, it can be a human. Any human can have learned that at any point in their lives. But sometimes when we don't speak, we stop things happening. So if you're really intentional, I always say it's like driving in city traffic. If you've got to drive in London, know where you're going, pay attention to the other drivers around you, but be bold. Because if you're bold, you won't get anywhere. If you're not bold.
I totally agree. You know, Napoleon Hill used to call that definiteness of purpose. It's so important. So, Caroline, tell me, who is your favorite client? If we're thinking about one-on-one, describe what your favorite speaking client looks like.
I really look forward to sessions with someone who has a voice that is going to change things. They are in a role, whatever that role is, where they can really change the world, and they know that there's a next level for them to find, but there's some blockages. Something in the system is holding them back, beliefs or physical tension, or often stuff that happened at school that, they a bit traumatized because they spoke up and everybody laughed at them. But as long as I know they've got that purpose and a reason to speak, it's really joyous to unblock what's ever in the way. And it's really joyous to hear them say, I did it. And, we won the pitch, or I've changed my boss's mind, or, we're going ahead with this big project. Because you and I know that when we speak, when we really step up into our power with purpose, we really change things. And it's lovely to help people unblock what's stopping them, so they can go and change things. It's just a really nice feeling.
That's so inspiring. It's so inspiring. Can you give us an example without naming names of what's like the biggest moment you had where you felt the joy of, I was part of that?
I don't know if it's the biggest moment, but it's a moment that I just loved working with this client. I had worked with her boss, who was the CEO of this organization, and he said to me, we've got, one of my reports, one of the people who works for me, she's not got enough gravitas. And when she comes and speaks to my executive committee, or comes and, speaks to the team, she's not landing the message with authority. And when I met her, she is just the most delightful person. And she's led huge projects and had real success in what she did. But she's got into this organization, which is really, really high task. Lots of people who are, full PhDs, very brainy, very factual. And she's shown up with this warmth, this connection, we'll call it dog energy. I want to be your friend. And she said, I've always got change to happen because I made friends with everybody and I showed up as a warm person. But this warm energy, it was catnip in previous organizations. In this one, it was just, they all went, she's being too friendly. Why is she being so friendly? This is too approachable. And so with her, it was about really helping her to understand that sometimes it doesn't matter if they like you or not.
Mm.
And that with some audiences, the resonant frequency is high task, be serious, newsreader. And when she was able to go from high approachability in these particular meetings, the senior high task ones, it was like suddenly they could hear her.
Wow.
And it was so quick that she could just change into this high task gear. And they suddenly went, yeah, that's what we need.
That is so interesting and powerful. So she wasn't being inauthentic, she was still being herself, but she was just modifying how she communicated.
It was almost like she modified the intentionality, because the intentionality of the kind of relationship, approachable dog space is, I want to be your friend, let's play. And let's play, be my friend, just didn't read for this audience. So she kept the intentionality of, I want this to be a success, this project needs to really work. But she took on the intention of, it doesn't matter if you like me or not here, let's get the facts straight. And then we can move forward. And they just rolled over and wanted, their tummies tickled. It was what those cats, we can call them, high task, independent minded, just needed that real straightforward high task. It doesn't matter if you like me or not frequency. And I think it's recognizing that who we are changes with different people anyway. Like who I am with my mum is different to who I am with a client, is different to who I am out for a drink with my friends. And those subtle shifts in gear can also work for us at work too.
That's interesting because it's not actually putting on different personas, it's just naturally who we are in different environments with different people.
With different intentions. Yeah, it's the like if you had to get someone out of a burning building, you wouldn't be like, oh, I'm so sorry to bother you. You'd be like, the building's on fire, let's go. And she had to find more of the building's on fire, let's go, where she'd been, I'm really sorry, could we? Gear changes, if that's not too kind of functional description.
No, I love it. Very powerful. And it is mechanical, I suppose, but it's a subconscious mechanical maneuver that we're constantly adapting to our environments. So thinking about that, the lack of, or the sort of stopping ourselves being paralyzed through fear of judgment, do you work with anyone around the social media performativeness of modern influencers and communication today? Because that's so much a part of business.
Yeah, I mean, I have worked with influencers, and it's a fascinating, that area is fascinating because, as you know, influencers are not always presenting the absolute truth of what's going on in a way that a TV presenter isn't, right? They're giving you certain layers of the truth. But when you work with an influencer who's, say, got a big Instagram profile and it's very curated, what they really have to understand is that on a stage, you can curate the message, but you haven't got short edits. You can't go back to your reels and cut stuff out. There's something about when you get on stage, it really is a thought through, prepared, authentic you. And I think for influencers, that feels quite vulnerable. Podcasts also, I think, when they're done well, require influencers to step into that conversational truth. I think the best podcasters are pretty much themselves. But it's Instagram reels don't necessarily ask that of you, I think.
No, no, it's an interesting space, isn't it? Because the popularity of the reels and the shorts create this brevity around communication generally. And I'm stepping into a space where I'm working out, well, how do I communicate on the social platforms, which it doesn't feel natural at all because I'm not of that era. My daughter, she could do it. And she's like, oh,
They're TikToking with their eyes closed, aren't they?
yeah, she's like, Mom, let me take over your reels. But I don't know. And then I'm like, well, is it too performative or should it be more relaxed? And it's interesting because we're from an era.
Different age.
Different age, yeah. My quill and my ink and my
The carrier pigeons.
Exactly, but it's really hard to sort of modify ourselves in terms of how do we communicate. I love long form. I love a long 1,000-word blog. That's really my comfort
Go
zone.
deep. Yeah.
Yeah, on a Sunday, write that up and then maybe do a YouTube video that takes 10 minutes to describe it. I love a bit of long form content, but that doesn't necessarily work today. So it's a challenge, isn't it, around adapting our communication for different environments, like you've just described that lady did for the boardroom.
And I think it's partly about what's comfortable for each of us, isn't it? Because I think ultimately that ease tends to communicate. I've learned that I've said to you, Bianca, that I've covered myself up with notes today because I'm just not good at talking to my own face.
Bless you, because it's a lovely face.
I don't want to look at it. And so I've really learned that I'm not good at making my own reels. So what Fatima and I now do is we roll the camera and she asks me questions and then we edit the answers to those. And actually, although my Instagram profile is nothing to write home about, we've noticed that people are more engaged by those than the kind of forced Caroline talking to a camera when, for all the reasons you've just described, it's not that comfortable. And it was an American speaker coach who suggested that to me, and it was really good advice.
That is good advice, because you can get these auto cue apps. I tried one of those the other day to make my own little TikTok, and I was like a robot reading.
Quite hard. There's something that happens to I think for those 23-year-olds who've grown up with this stuff, maybe it doesn't happen, but to me, my eyes get a bit fixed, which is a kind of, it's a stressed out, dysregulated gaze that I think affects my voice, and it just all is a bit like, ah. I don't do it anymore. It just doesn't work for me.
No, it's just not natural, is it, though? That's the thing. But you're following what does work for you. So that's great. I will look out for your Insta reels and follow them.
And for some, if it works for you, for some people, just go with it. I think it's just, am I in ease? And if I'm not in ease, what do I need to shift?
So let's talk about ease as we wrap up today, because you were talking about the ease of life flowing, and the reason it's exciting to me that you're here embodying this woman who epitomizes success with grace is because the work has flowed to you, the clients have flowed to you, where you are in life has flowed, and there's been an element of ease that clearly must vibrationally radiate from you. You obviously magnetize ease, but I'd love to hear what ease means to you in terms of work, but also obviously in terms of communication and what will be useful for our listeners and viewers.
I think the thing I would say to anybody, I mean, my career has never really had a plan, but I think what has worked without that plan has been to follow my bliss. And, that's a kind of easy thing to say. What does it mean? It meant that I was a very unhappy drama teacher. It just wasn't, it didn't sit right with me. So I trained as an actor, and then, but the feeling there wasn't a joy there. And then I stepped into voice teacher training and I was like, oh, this is fun. This is playful. And so I just followed that thread of where the play and the fun was. And I think right now, in a world where AI is just taking knowledge, AI is going to do knowledge work, right? I think for all of us, really getting into our ikigai, the center of what I love and what the world needs, and really speaking from that center of fun and playfulness and joy and hope. I think that's where the success, what is success? I don't know what that is, but where you will resonate with others and where you will draw others to you. And it's a lot, as you know, Bianca, about being really present to what am I feeling right now? And to operating from a place where you're helping others, but also you're playing, because that's where the ease is, when we play.
That's beautiful. And actually, that was going to be my final question for you. What is success? But I feel like you've just answered that, because actually you've described a place of replete fulfillment.
Helping others from a place of joy. I mean, there is a spiritual aspect to this. If we want to go there, it's it's helping from your sweet spot. And there are clients I've talked to, and I've said I can't, I don't think this is my sweet spot, because it does have to feel right. Now, if you're in a corporate job, sometimes you're going to be doing things that don't necessarily hit your sweet spot, but how can you find the freedom and the fun and the ease within that? I think that's a really interesting practice.
Totally agree with that. And actually, I talk about that being your dharma. So even if you're in the corporate realm wearing a hat that is, I'm a chief growth officer or whatever, actually, if your sole calling is to nurture the team, you can still do the technical stuff that you need to have the knowledge, but focus on nurturing the team.
And then it resonates, doesn't it? And then you change people, and the whole thing flows.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. How can our viewers and listeners follow you, work with you, and find you?
I'm at Caroline Goyder, Goyder, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on YouTube. And carolinegoyder.com is where you can get that confidence booster audio course and the Gravitas audio course, which I properly love. All of that stuff I'm doing every day. So they're a really good fundamental set of practices. And then obviously the books, Gravitas, Find Your Voice, and Star Qualities, are all on any good bookseller.
And worth rereading lots and lots as and when you need to focus on this aspect of life. Caroline, it's been such a pleasure meeting you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And I'm going to go and devour all of that content off your website as well.
Oh, thank you, Bianca. Honestly, I've had a blast. And there's so much synchronicity in what we're talking about.
Thank you so much. I loved this interview and I learned an awful lot throughout our conversation. What's sticking with me so powerfully is this spiritual Tibetan assumption that the voice is our spirit, and the voice has the power to inspire when we unleash it in such a way that we are expressing our truth. That is incredibly moving, and the power and the gift that we all hold within to express our voices, express ourselves in such a way to inspire and move truly is a spiritual gift. There's such a reverence for that I now hold, which I hadn't previously. So I thank Caroline from the bottom of my heart for making that such an interesting, informative conversation. I hope you have found that beneficial and it's inspired you to think about your relationship with your breath and your voice and how you communicate. If you've enjoyed this episode of The Big Impact Show, please be sure to subscribe or share, and make sure that you tune back in next time when I will be interviewing another inspiring guest who is epitomizing how they are embodying success with grace.